Dion, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the anatomy of a standout video. In other words, what are the sections of a resume that make up the body of the resume that make you a standout candidate for a job? Now, think of your career journey as a story, and your resume is what tells that story. And everybody loves a good story. So we're going to make sure that your resume tells the best possible story of your career. Your resume should answer 3 questions. It should answer, who are you? What have you done? And how do your skills and experience meet the employer's needs? In other words, how are you and what makes you the best person for the job? So those are the 3 questions that your resume should answer. And so in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about a little bit about what to include in your resume, for example, the different sections that you should include. And then I'm going to spend some time giving you some tips about how to format a resume. All right, let's go. So this is a sample resume here. It's a little bit small, but I'll show you a big version in a second, in a while. But as you can see, there's 6 sections. There's a heading, there's a summary, there are core competencies or highlight of skills, accomplishments, and awards. Then there's a professional experience, your education, and then there's a 6th optional section called skills and professional associations. So I'm going to show you first in a second here what that resume looks like close up. And this is a much closer view of what that resume should look like. All right, so now let's get back into talking a little bit about the first section, which is the heading. So your heading should answer the question, who are you? It should include your full name, where you live, city and state. You don't need to put your full address because people are probably not going to send you mail anyway. And then it needs to include your contact information, which is your phone number, your email address, and your LinkedIn profile link if you have one. So here's some tips. First of all, your LinkedIn profile should be consistent with your resume. Chances are that after a recruiter or a hiring manager gets your resume, they're going to look you up on LinkedIn. So you want to make sure that that information is consistent so that it tells a consistent story about your career. And don't worry, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, one of our experts at the Dress for Success Career Center can help you set one up, or you can watch the video on how to create your own LinkedIn profile. The other thing you need to do is to double check that your information is correct. You want to make sure that your phone number is correct, your email address is correct, because you have to make sure that someone is able to contact you. I recommend that you avoid including personal social media accounts unless you're applying for a role where social media is kind of required, and your personal social media account is a good example of your skills in that area. And your email addresses should be professional, they should be simple, and they shouldn't include appropriate adjectives. And I've given you some examples that you've seen here on the screen. babylove@gmail.com, probably for your friends, but if you're applying for a role, professional role, try to use something that's more professional. And there's tons of different sites like Google, Gmail, Hotmail, that allow you to create free email accounts. So now let's move on to the summary. The summary answers 2 questions. Who are you and what have you done? But it's just in about 2 to 3 sentences. It's not a long piece of information. It just quickly explains your expertise. So examples could include the number of years experience that you have in a particular industry, which industries you've worked in, talk a little bit about what you're passionate about, some of the skills, but it should be very short and to the point. It's kind of like a quick summary of who you are before the reader gets even deeper into your resume. The section called highlights of expertise, accomplishments, or relevant skills. This is a section that asks the question, what have you done? And it's in a summary form. So it's usually a bulleted list. Some ideas are that you could include highlights of requirements and skills needed for the job. So for example, computer programming, or you have some sort of certification in Adobe Creative Suite, or you know how to write, or you're good at content development. Alternatively, It can include 3 to 5 examples of accomplishments or problems that you've solved. But the key here is to use 3 to 5 examples that pertain to the job that you're applying for. So it's really important to pay attention to what the job is asking of you and then put those examples in there. Another tip for this section is to use keywords and phrases from the job description so that an applicant tracking system can pull your resume. And what is that? An applicant tracking system is a machine that pulls your resume based on keywords that it picks up before an actual human even gets to see your resume. So you have to make sure that that machine pulls your resume after it scans it. And the way to do that is by including keywords and phrases from the job description. So let's move on to the career experience section. This section answers in a little bit more detail, how do your skills and experience meet the employer's needs? So what you want to do in this section is you want to start with your most recent experience, employment experience, and work backwards. So you start with the most recent and go in reverse order, and you should go back no more than 10 to 15 years because anything beyond that might not be considered to be relevant experience. And then you also want to think about, you don't want your resume to be too long as well, and we'll talk about that later on. Now, as you're putting this section together for each job, you need to include the dates you were employed, the name of the company. You might also want to consider including a 1-sentence description of the company if it's not well known. Then you're going to write the position or the job title that you had. You're going to do a brief description of your primary responsibilities, and then you're going to select 3 to 5 accomplishments that you've been able to accomplish in this particular role. Now, when it comes to the career experience section, there's some tips that would really help you here. Your resume should show impact or skills that help you solve a problem area. In other words, what have you done that shows success, right? And impact can be measured by metrics, like you've saved the company X number of dollars, or you've reduced a process by, increased efficiency in a process. But you can also show impact by cultural improvements or special projects or customer growth. So we're looking at anything that really showed how you were successful in that job. And again, here, you want to make sure that you include keywords and phrases that describe when describing your responsibilities so that that applicant tracking system can pull you again. Now, this is a section that's a little bit tricky for a lot of people because sometimes you might have career gaps or you've had a variety of short-term roles and you're not sure, how do I put that together in a chronological way that still tells a really good career story? So if you're in one of those categories, just make sure to contact us and we can help you in structuring your resume in a way that still helps you to shine. So the next section is the education section. This answers the question, how do your skills and experience meet the employer's needs? Now in this section, you should really only include advanced degrees. So no need to include your high school diploma, but anything after high school that you completed. So it should include the type of degree, whether it was a Bachelor of Arts, a Bachelor of Science, an MBA, a Master of Science, the name of the degree, and the name of the school. It's not always necessary to include the year that you received the degree. That's a lot of recruiters don't actually care. They just want to know that you have it. And then you can also include industry-specific certification or training that would be relevant to the particular job that you're applying for. Under special skills, professional development, and awards, this answers the question, how do your skills and experience meet the employer's needs? Now, this is one of those sections that you don't have to include. You may not have information to include it, and that's okay. That's all right. But if you can consider putting in career awards that you've received, maybe additional languages that you speak because you might be applying for a role that requires bilingual skills, or any volunteer work that might be relevant to the role that you're applying for. But again, not necessary to include this section. So putting it all together, we can see here that this is what the resume looks like. It's a good anatomy. As you can see, she has all of the key areas and they stand out in a way that you can actually see what is being captured, and it's easy for the person to read. So that takes us to formatting the resume. When it comes to formatting, your best software is probably to use Microsoft Word, or if you have a Mac, you can consider using Pages. With regard to your layout, you shouldn't go more than 3 pages unless perhaps you're a vice president or you've had a lot of experience and you want to expand a little bit, but then you have to think about the fact that somebody has to read that resume. So we always recommend going with no more than 2 pages. Again, your heading should be bold and clear. That's a section with your name and your contact information. And then you should try to put enough space between lines and sections so that it's easy to read and easy on the eye. You don't want the resume to look too cluttered because it would be difficult to read. You have to keep your formatting consistent. And what I mean by that is, if you want to write July in one section, don't swap it out for 07 in another section. Try to be consistent in your use of grammar and how you write things and how you spell things out. And that takes me to paying attention to spelling. Pay attention to spelling, pay attention to grammar and punctuation. And don't use exclamation points because it makes you sound like you're shouting. Now, with regard to paying attention to spelling and grammar, a lot of recruiters kind of pick up on mistakes like that, and it sometimes, unfortunately, sends a message that you're not careful, you don't pay attention to detail. So if you're not good at that, that's fine. Ask a friend who's really good at checking and spell checking and grammar, or one of our Dress for Success career coaches can review your resume and help to find those errors as well. When you're doing your resume, you should also think about just using one font. I say no more than 2 if you want to add some visual interest, but try to stick to one font where possible. And then you have to think about whether you want to use serif or sans serif fonts, and you pick that based on the industry. And what do I mean by that? So a serif font, as you can see here, is one of those fonts that has a little lines at the edge of all of the letters. As you can see here, there's Garamond, there's Book Antica. And a sans serif font is one that doesn't have those lines at the end, like Arial or Avenir Next. Now, companies that are more traditional in nature tend to want to rely on serif fonts, but if you're applying for a role that's more tech-related, more modern, like a fashion role, you might want to consider using a sans serif font. Whatever you do not use Comic Sans. Ever do not use Comic Sans. Now, when you think about your font, it should be clear, should be easy to read, and it should be a good size, between 10 and 12 points. Anything smaller can make it harder to read, and anything bigger might be a little bit too glaring, unless you want to make your name stand out in the heading section. If you're using color, use it sparingly. The majority of your resume, when you look at it, should be black text. And then if you want to choose a color, choose one that looks good both on screen and when printed. And also think about colors that, try to think about the mood that colors portray as well. So for example, you might not want to go too light or too pastel because you want to show that you're a strong, confident person. So to stick to jewel tones like blues and purples for your color if you're choosing a color. So now let's put it all together. Number 1, your resume and your LinkedIn profile should be consistent. And again, if you need help putting together a LinkedIn profile, we can help you with that. Your resume should answer 3 basic questions. Who are you? What have you done? And how do your skills and experience meet the employer's needs? And the anatomy of your resume should include the following sections: a heading with your name, contact information, a summary which gives a brief highlight of what your expertise is. Then you include your core competencies or highlights of expertise, your accomplishments or your skills. Then you go deep dive into your career experience, and then you list your education, and then there's the optional section where you include special skills, professional development, or awards. So I hope you found this video helpful. Remember that a Dress for Success career coach is available to help you put your resume together, help you put your LinkedIn profile together, and please contact us using the contact information here on the screen. Have a great day. Bye.